but go ahead and definitely read this. Skim through that. It shouldn't take you more than a couple of minutes. This over here, right? This was shared within this morning, an emergency video from Simon Dixon. Simon has a history of being correct in the Bitcoin community. You've also acknowledged Simon's work in some of your videos. Simon gave his personal read on the latest Bitcoin crypto executive order in this video. Thank you. I'm going to watch this with great interest. I'm a fan of Simon's work. No question about that. Thanks for paying interest, Jordan. Simon frequently releases new videos to give people up-to-date read on the heightening geopolitical and financial tensions. He also advocates peace and love and unity and financial education to protect personal wealth. I find these values resonate well with CTM's core values, right? And here we go. Listen, I'm going to play over here. I'm going to share, obviously, the link, but I'm going to play 3 minutes over here. Prior to here, this is about 13 and a half minutes in, Simon was talking about the executive order that we saw yesterday leaked, and the importance of it, and what he believes the importance of it, and why he believes why the U.S. is going ahead and pressing forward with that right now is in order to get its house in order for the upcoming, he's calling it Bretton Woods 3. And we have talked here a lot in CTM about what we believe, the possibility of, all the world's players sitting down to arrange a new monetary system going forward, as this one is coming towards an end. And we also have talked greatly about that those that hold the gold will get a seat at the table, right? What else? Oh, by the way, pay close attention to what he says in that area about the executive order and what he personally is going to believe happen with a lot of tokens and how they're going to be classified. I think it's very important, especially for someone who has a position outside of Bitcoin. I want to play these 3 minutes with you, and then I'll go ahead and share the link.
Gold is being sanctioned from Russia, which means that the $130 billion of gold that Russia has been accumulating as fast as it could possibly accumulate only really has a few places that it can go if they need to ride out the ginormous recessive effects that can happen in moving from a exporter to a more domestic economy, more like a Northern Korean style economy, or a pre-globalization China style economy where they have to rely upon their own commodities and their own economies to build. And if they need to sell their gold as a result, there really is one buyer, and that buyer is China. The PBOC wants to accumulate as much gold as it possibly can for reasons that I will go through in that. And they will do that because China needs to get a seat at what I was forecasting in that video series, Bretton Woods 3. I'll go through why I call it Bretton Woods 3 shortly, but Bretton Woods 3 is what I called in the 4-part video series, the monetary renegotiation that's going to happen in the forecasted Great Depression of the 2020s. And the US executive order is about getting its shit in gear for central bank digital currencies, for stable coins, for what's a security, for what's a currency, as they enter the negotiation table for the post-war Bretton Woods 3 negotiation and monetary renegotiation. Prediction 1 is that China will end up buying the gold, or PBOC will end up buying gold in order to get a seat at the table of Bretton Woods 3. Why? Because remember what I said, the gold to GDP ratio of a country is what determines whether you're going to be statistically significant enough to have a seat at either the hidden Bretton Woods 3 or the public Bretton Woods 3, wherever it actually goes. And there probably will be 2, and you'll only hear about the second. So that's prediction number 1. And China has been accumulating more and more gold than I believe is publicly disclosed. And so they have that seat at the table. And taking some of Russia's gold would be a very politically challenging environment, but also a way to get a seat at Bretton Woods 3 as they do. Prediction number 2, the Bitcoin policy of those that don't have a seat at the table, i.e., we're talking about the El Salvadors, the Central American nations, the South American nations, various jurisdictions in Asia, and various other jurisdictions across Europe, outside of the EU, maybe. Their policy on Bitcoin and how they react to this, and whether they accumulate and whether they adjust to a Bitcoin standard. And I don't mean a involuntary Bitcoin standard. I mean a voluntary Bitcoin standard, which is using Bitcoin as a politically neutral global digital hard sound money, will determine whether they can potentially get a seat at the table in the upcoming monetary renegotiation. And if they can't get a seat at the table, whether they can get on the right side of financial history based upon whether they're implementing a Bitcoin standard within their country. So,
did you get all of that? I mean, absolutely. So first of all, he's talking about Bretton Woods coming at the conclusion of World War III. I mean, we've talked about it here. We continue to talk about it. It's already underway, and it's a financial war, and it is really starting to get hot right now. So, as far as timeline about when these parties sit down, I mean, nothing's changed since we started talking about 2020 is when we started talking about, when they would need to sit down to reset the system, and those holding gold would get a seat at the table. He's now bringing it further and talking about forget countries like, Germany, Italy, the United States, Russia, China, those holding massive piles of gold. Who else is going to get a seat at the table? He's saying potentially countries that have embraced Bitcoin like El Salvador might have the possibility to get a seat at this new table. And if not, they might be able, through sound money, through neutral money, be able to protect themselves going forward. This video is like candy. I love this type of stuff. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I want to make sure to share it with all of you. I've only gotten 20 minutes into this video, right? I will be watching this multiple times. It's something that needs to be watched and rewatched to take it all in, but I want to make sure that you all have access to it because it really helps in setting, let's say, the foundation for what we do here together as we continue the conversation. By the way, with the most extreme gratitude, right? Thank you, everyone, reaching out, letting me know the type of effect that this mentoring has had on them and in their personal lives. The silent majority maybe not be loud and obnoxious, but they're certainly not silent. I'm grateful for that. And the people that are able to go ahead and take responsibility and make their own decisions from the information provided. Update on the executive order and Bretton Woods number 3. Multiple times, 2.5 times. So I was really grateful for that. I'm grateful for you sharing it with myself and with the group. So it seems, and this is good, it seems what Simon did was he receives the report from Zoltan. Remember Zoltan, right? Our repo guy who understands really the inner workings of the plumbing of the whole system. And Zoltan had released this report, Credit Suisse Economics, on Bretton Woods 3, and he's calling, and this is what Simon was basically reading through and helping us understand better. And by the way, giving all the credit in the world to Simon, the way that he presents information, the way that he's seen what is happening going on in the world for like many, many years, not just today. But you also have, this is not like a Bitcoiner, aka Simon. This is also like Wall Street, talking about the same thing. And I just want to read over here, one thing over here. So a crisis unfolding, a crisis of commodities. No, for those pressed for time, what Zoltan is effectively saying is that the legacy Western monetary system based on fiat currencies and a US dollar reserve is about to end. Now, when we say is about to end, I don't think that we have any type of timeline or time frame And whether that means days, weeks, months, or years, it means all of them. In an inflationary supernova, we will be replaced with a metallic monetary system, one using a commodity-based currencies as a payment method. However, not quite a gold standard. It's like a basket of commodities with gold and a basket of fiat. Now, the only reason I want to add on to this over here is because Simon, he mentioned the parties that would have a seat at the table. There was one missing, and I picked up on it, and he didn't mention the IMF, right? He mentioned specifically the United States, assuming they have gold. Nobody knows. He mentioned China. He mentioned Russia, assuming China does not buy their gold and that Russia is left with their current gold. And he mentioned Germany as being the largest holder in Europe. Now, by the way, Italy, as you all know, we mentioned over here, is a close third to Germany. France as well. So it's really important understanding when you have the United States, Germany, Italy, France, because that is what we'll call the West. And they all are the allies, as they like to call themselves. And they have interests that are aligned, right? Now, we do have India, we have China, we have Brazil, we have Russia, and they are all very much aligning. By the way, when we talk about aligning, India plans, regardless of what the U.S. sanctions are, to buy Russian oil. They're working on a ruble settlement chasm and mechanism for that settlement. And the West understands, well, they don't really have a choice, right? That's what they're doing as people were pushed away from the dollar. But the IMF, they hold a bunch of gold, all right? So the IMF holds, let's call it 2,800 metric tons, which places them in between Germany and Italy. Why that's important is because the IMF has a seat at the table. Why it's important is because the IMF is generally a United States interest-based group. So what the United States, wants, like the IMF is working on their behalf, as well as working with the allies. So you have, the United States, Germany, the IMF, Italy, France, all have a seat at the table, all behind the IMF. The whole plan of the IMF, I first came onto it in the IMF white paper that they released on central bank digital currencies in 2018, is to launch this new monetary system that's backed by the SDR, the special drawing rights. Now, as it stands, the special drawing rights right now is a basket of fiat currencies and gold. It does appear that that's also now going at some point during this monetary reset to include commodities, right? You see Simon mentioning that. You see Zoltan mentioning that. Now, the one difference, or the one thing that I'm just pointing out, not to be right, just because I'm trying to figure this all out in real time as it occurs, because obviously Zoltan is not mentioning the IMF. Simon's not mentioning the IMF. It seems that all of these parties, that this is going to be, we're going to be looking at central bank digital currencies backed not by the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. I believe it's going to be the SDR out of the IMF. This, what I think I want to call it, like a new world order institution. And that's their goal. Now, I'm quite not sure, but I believe that's probably not in the interest of China. I believe that's probably not in the interest of Russia, because you saw lately over the past week that that the talk was cutting Russia off from its IMF reserves. And basically they said they couldn't do it. But the fact that they could even talk about it, I'm sure Russia, I'm sure China, I'm sure India and everyone else does not want anything to do with that new system. But you have a lot of powerful parties who together, and add in the IMF over there, hold a lot of the gold. So I just wanted to kind of, I love, let's call it nerding out on that type of stuff. So I wanted to share that with y'all. Yeah. So Simon talks about how the UK kind of shot themselves in the foot in that video. If you didn't watch that video, I'm just going to share the link one more time. I think it's fantastic. I watched it 2.5 times.